Stick with me, I will make you famous. I will take you places to see different faces. I'm Matthew Msingati, the designer and developer. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Coded Design, where I teach coding and user interface design. This is a series of videos where I'm reverse engineering bigger platform and applications like YouTube, Google, and Instagram. In this video, we are reverse engineering YouTube and we are talking about routing. Okay, let's just jump straight into it. Let's start from the way you know URLs at the moment, or the web at the moment. When we talk of the web, of the URL, we are talking of, let me just draw that URL input. This is where you type your URL. If you want to go, let's say codeddesign.co.za, codeddesign.co.za will be typed here. So it will be something along the lines of www.codeddesign.co.za. Then when you get into this codeddesign.co.za, automatically the server engine will execute a file called index. It's going to be .html or it's going to be .php. That's why you just go to codeddesign.co.za or let's say google.com without seeing /index.php or index.html, simply because when in the root directory of this URL or of this domain, the server automatically execute this page without even having you to write it here .index. But now let us say in the general way of doing things, let's say that you have clicked into a page, let's say in this URL, and then when you are going to that page, in the URL you will see something like www.coded, let's just stick to coded to make things simple, coded.co.za / if you are on services, you will see something like services dot, let's say html. What does this mean? What does this services.html mean? This then means that now your URL is pointing to this file, which is services.html. What is services.html? Services.html is a file in your server. Your server has got a root directory, looks something like this, and then there is a folder called public. There's a folder called public. Obviously these folders they vary from server to server or service provider to service provider. Maybe it might be called www and that's it, but however it's a root folder. So the engine, when you type a URL, it points straight to this folder, and then in this folder there are files depending on the file structure of that application. But here there are just different files, different pages. Maybe let's say the first one will be index.html, let's say. This is the file that is executed automatically as soon as you hit this domain, www.coded.co.za. The engine will load this file. But then when you click services on an HTML page, then the page services.html will be loaded. So as about us, so as gallery, so as whatever. But now let's just jump back straight to YouTube. On YouTube URL, when you as you are dealing with YouTube, in this URL bar or in this URL input, you have never seen something like YouTube, www.youtube.com and then /videos.php or /playlist.php. Why are you not seeing these files and pages? Why YouTube URL are different from your so-called general normal web application URL. And usually these URLs, they are called pretty URLs or short URLs. So with YouTube URLs, you will see something along the lines of youtube.com, and then you will see /, let's say the name of my YouTube channel. You will see something like maybe at coded design, and then /, and then you will see a string of alphabets and numbers, like maybe let's say YC7 4AD, and that's it. This doesn't look the same as what you are used to this, because this is easy to explain. You can say that, look, when you type www.coded.co.za, you are going to this root folder and then you are looking for this page. It makes sense, right? Yes. But now, why here on YouTube it's different? Why you won't see an extension of a file .php or .html? You won't see that. The answer is routing. So in web technology, there is a system or a technique that is used to make sure that first of all, you control the access of how people access your root index or how people access your file. As I've told you that in normal web application or normal website, you will see this services.html, but when the routing technique has been applied and used, then you will notice, just like in YouTube, that you will always see some different strings here, but however you won't see the actual .html. It's like they have, the pages are hidden. You don't see the pages. If YouTube if you're using YouTube and you are on, let's say, on analytics and whatever, you won't see an extension or at the end a word like maybe analytics.php or .html, as if this is a page for analytics. Why is that so? Then let's talk about routing. As I have told you, that routing changes this to this. It just removes all this information and it puts something that is short, meaningful, and easy to understand, even for the developers. Easy to understand. So how is that being achieved? Okay, now let me introduce something new, which is HT access. So there is this file called .ht access. The .ht access file communicates with the server, the engine of the server, and it have some rules on what must be done with this URL. For instance, in the .ht access file, I can tell the engine that, okay, whatever that is being typed here, always go to a certain file. What do I mean by that? Okay, let's say I'm telling the engine to always execute index.html. So now somebody is requesting www.co.za .codeddesign.co.za /services. If I have written this rule here in the .access file that it must always come here, this means that whatever I type here, you are not going to go to this service file, but you will always default to the index. Do you see how am I controlling what you type here, how I'm restricting you from accessing other files? Let me just make it practical. With this rule applied, then it means that if you are typing coded design, let's say / you want services.html, you are not going to get it. You are going to be sent back to the index. What if maybe you have typed coded design / whatever, anything 1 2 3 4, you are always going to be referred to index. So one thing that I'm introducing to you at the moment is that it's possible that the server can be controlled as to where it goes when you type a URL. you can gain that access, you can control it. And how do you do that? You do it through a file called htaccess.htaccess. In that file you can write those rules. Let me take another page. So let me just write here, we are continuing with routing. Okay, so the first thing that you have learned is, as much as there is a URL that you type, let's say www or htaccess www.youtube.com, because of the htaccess file, you can be able to, whatever that is typed here, it's meaningless, meaning that you are not going to go to this direction, to this file location or the page, but you will always be redirected to index. And what is the YouTube team trying to accomplish with this? They are trying to stick to the design pattern called single point of entry. Then we are going back to design patterns. If you are new in this video, this is a series of videos. There are other videos that I've done before this one, talking about a lot of interesting things as to dissecting the YouTube platform. So meaning that YouTube platform is sticking to a design pattern called single point of entrance, meaning that whatever that you type here, the engine, the server, the engine must always redirect you to the index. Let me just give you an idea as to why this is being done. Let's say we've got some house rules that must be applied into URLs. If we can let people to access multiple pages, let's say if we can let this URL to have access to multiple pages of the system, let's say this is home page, this is YouTube homepage, and then here maybe this is the community tab, and this is about the channel tab. If we can let the URL, which is users, to access, let's say, different pages, it will mean that if we've got house rules that need to be applied to for all the URLs that are accessing the file, it will mean that we have to implement those house rules in all of those files, all of those pages. In this case, how many house rules have we applied so far? It's 1, 2, 3. But if we've got a single point of entrance, we are only going to do it once. So I think this one is clearer, and this has been achieved by a file on a server called .htaccess. And then let's continue to routing. Now that we know that we can control the users from the entrance of the application, we can be able to just open one door, which is index, where we are sure that all the visitors to our house, they always use this door. They are going to always knock in this door. Then we are safe with that. Now let us continue to routing. And then now that everything comes to this door, remember, if maybe people were accessing different pages, meaning that there was no going to be an administration involved, meaning that they are just going to access these pages. Let's just treat these pages as members of the family. So meaning that this is Matthew, John, and whoever, and Tabo. So Matthew, John, and Tabo are members of the house. So when the visitors, when Tabo's friends are coming, they just come here and they go to Tabo. If Matthew's friends are coming, they just come here and go to Tabo. Now we are saying that no, this is not wrong because it causes chaos in the family. What we must do, let's introduce a single point of access. Let's say everyone who wants to access the members of the family, they must go through our mother, which is the parent. So meaning that the mother needs to have the whereabouts of the children. Do you see that this is administration now to the mother? The same thing happens to routing. Because of we are channeling all the files to one index file, it will mean that when somebody is looking for a page about the channel.com, or is looking for the page analytics, or is looking for whatever YouTube page, it will mean that this index file needs to have a certain system by which it calls or it associates the request to the files. And that method or that system or that approach is routing. So behind the scene, YouTube has a routing mechanism that enables them to associate a request, which is a pretty URL, instead of the one that has got .html or .php. That does away with that, and it introduces a pretty URL, but that system makes sure that it associates the pretty URL to the actual pages. However, routing, it's not a routing doesn't define how it must be done. There is a lot of room for this technique. It's just a technique. How it has been applied, it varies. So I'm just going to give you some possibilities as to how it can be applied, okay, or how it might have been applied. So this means that now let's just get in here. Now we've got index as an entrance, okay, and we've got these pretty URLs that are looking for services. Let's be practical. We are looking for a page called Analytics, YouTube Analytics. We are looking for a page called About page. We are looking for a page called Community on the Community tab, and also there is Home, YouTube Home. So meaning that here there is a guy called Index, or the gatekeeper. Let's call him the gatekeeper. He's like in real life a security guard that opens and closes the gate for you at any premises, those bigger premises. There is a guy, a security guard, that opens and closes the gates for you, and he will always ask, which office are you visiting and who are you visiting there? Then he will also go as far as calling that office to say that, are you expecting a visitor? There is that security guard, the gatekeeper. Let's call him the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper is here having a table. In terms of the security guard, it's a table of businesses that are in the premises with their names and also their contact number and the person who's responsible, let's say the business owner. So this gatekeeper, this is a routing table. So in the index folder, there is a mechanism for the routing table. And then this means that, let's say, now that YouTube, instead of having the pages attached to their URL, they are having some different strings that contains letters and alphabet. Let's say that on this youtube.com / for analytics, they have ANT1. Obviously, let's say for about us, it's AB2. For community, it's COM3. And for home, it's H1. As you can see that these are different alphanumeric strings. Then now in this table, we've got the alphanumeric string, we've got AN11, we've got AB2, and we've got H1 as home. So now we need to say there is also a column called page. Then now the router needs to know that this number corresponds to the analytics page, and this A2 corresponds to about us page, and this H1 corresponds to home page. And also there are some functions or some sort of classes that can be called. For now, let's just call it a group of functions to make our life easier, because if I'm talking about classes, I will get into object-oriented programming. I will to talk about instantiation, and it's going to make the whole presentation complicated or harder to understand. Let's say now there are functions associated with these requests. There are functions associated with these requests. So when somebody is looking for an A11, the page, it's analytics, and then the function that is going to be executed is get or render. Let me just use render a view. There is a function called render. And then what are we rendering? Let's say we are rendering, okay, let's say render analytics. Let's just call it that way. It's render analytics. This means that this function, as soon as it's being rendered, it returns a string of HTML which is going to be displayed on your user interface. And this string of HTML, when you display it on the browser, then it will display all the information for analytics. The same thing happens for About Us. As soon as this request has been received, then we are going to call, let's say, a function called render about, and then it will return a string of HTML. And this process, in simple terms, it's called routing. Obviously, it goes a long way, or it goes deeper than this, but this one, it's just a conceptual way of helping you to understand why on your own website you always see let's say /services .html, but on the YouTube channel you don't see all those things. You don't know the pages, you don't see the pages and where they are. So this whole process is called routing. It's more and deeper than this, but this is how far I can go in explaining routing in the YouTube platform. If you feel like this information has helped you to gain understanding and insight in the YouTube application and also programming in general, please do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and that like button. Otherwise, for me, Matthew Msingati, stick with me. I will make you famous. I will take you places to see different faces. See you on the next one.